Welcome back to the Crochet Corrado. So, as my friends at Yarnspirations.com. Today we have the pistachio hat. This is probably for beginners. And what this is using Caron Chunky Cupcakes. I'll flash that image on screen. And with that particular yarn, it comes with a Pom Pom that matches the colors that we have. So the color changes you see is actually coming right out of the ball itself. So I never had to cut any yarn in order to make that happen. And it looks great no matter which way we're going to go. So this is done in a continuous round, and when we cast on, we're going to cast on with 18 inches, so it's 18 from the tip to the tip, and this is a 5.5 millimeter size US 9 circular knitting needle. The brand that you see is called Likey. I'm not sponsored by them, but that's what I prefer. You're also going to need a 5.5 millimeter size US 9 double point needles. You need a set of 5 of them. They're usually in a set of 5. So 4 of them are used for doing the reduction at the top of the hat, and the 1 is used for knitting as you go. And you'll see how that's done in today's tutorial. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to break this apart because a lot of the stuff in hats is pretty standard, and I have other videos to do that. So I'm going to take you to the instructions. I'll flash then on screen the instruction to do it, and then give you a demonstration. And then where I'm going to pick up for this particular hat is right at the top to show you how to do the reduction in the last 10 rows that you'll have. So on screen is just 1 ball of Caron Chunky Cupcakes is all we needed. It was pistachio cream, and we did have the knitting needles that you were recommending here. A new picture will be provided in the downloadable. So we have just basically instructions here, abbreviations that are used. And what I need you to do with the 18-inch circular knitting needles that I need you to cast on 72 loops. So what I'm going to do is show you how to cast on now, and then I'll be right back in a moment. You're going to insert your knitting needles. It is a circular here for the brim. And what we want to do is that I'm going to demonstrate a twist and transfer method. If you prefer a different method, then please do so. Okay, so this particular one, knit 2, purl 2, requires a multiple of 4. So no matter what your information that you have, it should be a multiple of 4 because there's 2 knit and 2 purl. So I'm going to wrap the back needle, and I'm just going to bring it through. And so we have a slower video available for this concept if you want it. And then it's called a cast on, twist and transfer. And you're just going back in, going around. This is a tight cast on. So whatever the cord length is that you have, this has to get all the way around that cord. So what you're seeing on camera here is a total of 14 inches from tip to tip. And because I'm using a small point Likey knitting needle, you can decide whatever equipment you would like to do. It just has to get around. So cast on the number that is suggested in the video or in the tutorial, or even in the written pattern. As long as it's a multiple of 4, this will work. And I'll see you in just a few seconds from now. The next part of this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to knit 2, purl 2, and this is used in the brim. And once you start this particular round, is that you're going to do that particular same thing, going round and round until the brim is measuring 1.5 inches from the tip here to here. And so what I'm going to do, demonstrate, knit 2, purl 2, and you'll do that around until it's 1.5 inches thick. So I've now just cast on. The number of stitches on here is divisible by 4, so it gives a real number, so there's no decimal points. So whatever the number is, if you divide it by 4, it should be in a whole number. So what you're going to do at this point, I'm going to show you a little trick. I want you to add 1 more stitch to it. Trust me. Okay, this is a trick I learned. So I'm going to add 1 more stitch and put it on. Now, what I want to do is that I want to attach that stitch so that it's going to join the 2 ends together to make this going around. So I want you to put this and just purl-wise slip stitch. So just stick the needle in this way and slip it onto the other one here. Okay, so come on over. I then want you, see this one right here? To take this up over top of the point, leaving that in position. So it's going to take a little bit of finesse and just drag it up and over the other one that you just moved over. Okay, so just take your time. It's not a race. It takes a bit of practice. Come up and over. Okay, and then slide down. So what you've done, even though you added an extra stitch to it, you've done it in a way that now the connection is permanent. pull things tight. Okay, so don't forget to pull things tight. So now we're going to want to know whenever we go in a full round. So slip on a stitch marker. And in this case, we are doing a knit 2, purl 2. And if the pattern says purl 2, knit 2, it's still the same. It's still divisible by 4. So in this case, we're going to knit the first 2. And when you knit the first 2, make sure it's tight. Okay, so just use your finger. And when you knit, just kind of pull up on it and then knit the next one as well. Of the brims, I prefer knit 2, purl 2. That's one thing I've learned so far in knitting. So once you have that done, the next 2 are going to be purl. So move the yarn from behind in the front and purl the next 2. And you don't have to tug on those tight like you did in the first 2. Okay, it's just because you were attaching and making it into a permanent circle. So the goal is that as you push up on this needle, you are going to push down on this one, and it will come around the cord and back around. So once those 2 are done, you're going to knit the next 2 and then purl the next 2 and do that all the way around, and I'll see you at the end of the round in just a moment. So I'm coming all the way around, and because I started with the knit 2, the last 2 stitches before the stitch marker should be a purl 2. So if the pattern said that you had to start with purl 2 and finish with knit 2, then knit 2 would be then your last before you're ending the round. Okay, so it works either way. So now this stitch marker, you're going to just transfer it over and then begin a new round. So you now have everything worked out. So if the stitch count did not work out and something happened and you didn't have the right number when you came all the way around, if you look at it, do you see that these stitches come straight on up? This was a knit stitch, and the ones with the horizontal here, these are the purls. So you should be able to see 2, 2, 2, everything's in sets of 2 in order to help you identify your stitches. So in case that you screwed up somewhere, if you just scan through that, you'll be able to tell which was which when you did it. So when you start another round, the first 2 stitches are really important on the second round, but then the rest of it, when you're going round and round, it won't matter so much. It's just because you did the join in the last round from here. So the first 2 will be a knit stitch because that's how we started. Okay, so once you have the first one done, pull up on it tight, 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 and then do the next one, wrap and coming through, and also pull that one tight. So the first 2 is the opportunity to pull tight, and the rest of it won't matter so much. And then you're just gonna purl the next 2, and you'll do that around. So follow the instructions on the pattern itself or the video tutorial that may be attached to this in order to work it, but this is how you would do the generic knit 2, purl 2, or purl 2, knit 2, depending on the pattern for your brims. And that's it for now. Now what we're going to do is the body of the hat, and what we're going to do is just eliminate out the purl, and we're just going to do a straight knit stitch going around and around. I don't think that you need a stitch marker. You're going to notice is that there's a tail end at the beginning of your stitch work. You're just going to use that as kind of your guide on when you're going around and around, but because you're on the circular knitting needles, there's no slip stitching, there's no seam lines, it's just going around and around, and you want to do this until it's measuring 8 inches from the base here to the knitting needles that will be up here. The colors transitions that you see with this nice heathered look is just naturally coming out of the ball just like that. So it changes whenever you feel like it, but if you want to do color options, and I'll leave that in your capable hands. Because you are doing a continuous round, if you do change color like that, you will notice is that there's usually a jump in the color. So it won't just be straight on like this, but if you look really carefully, you can see how it jumps. So you would end up with that on if you were doing color play, and that would end up being at the same position, but in this case, because it's just coming out of the ball as is, it shows up where it wants to, just like that. So do the base now, and you're going to do straight knitting all the way to 8 inches, and then we're going to head back into this to prepare to do the reduction.
So as I'm inserting it in, okay, I put this finger behind the stitch to stabilize it. So I use it as like more of a pushing. So if you push something against something, it's kind of acting like as a counter push back in the other direction. So it makes it, so if I go like this without it, you can see that this needle wants to go away, but if I put my finger behind it, it stabilizes as a counterbalance. And so I want to insert it into that loop, and I counterbalance so that it just glides over top of my finger, and I insert in. So it's now in behind. So then the knit stitch is just wrapping around the back needle, okay, and then just transfer it through, so just flicking it through. Now that it's through, slide it up of the needle. So with this, these particular stitches, I'm gonna move them closer to the edge, and again watch this finger, and I'm just gonna kind of speed up a little bit. So I'm just gonna stabilize it. Okay, so I go in and then I wrap on the back side like this, and then I come forward and slide up.
So on screen is now 8 inches from the base here right to where the circulars are, and I'm using the starting strand here just to show me where I was going around, so I did not use any stitch markers along the way, but I will in the next round. Our goal now is to prepare the top to transfer out the circular knitting needle and transfer in the DPNs, or the double point needles. So 4 of these needles will be used to hold the stitches, and the extra one will be used to knit with. So instead of using the circular knitting needles to knit with, we're just going to push this down and let this fall out like this way. So don't let the loops come off. And so we are going to knit 18 of the stitches using just the double points only. So just making sure that this stays out of the way, and once you do a couple, that will get out of your way. It's kind of a pain in the ass when you start, to be honest. And so you're going to knit that, and now that it's out of your way, you can just continue to knit. So 18 of these stitches will be put onto this knitting needle. When you are not using these knitting needles, you need to keep these loops in the center so that the needle doesn't slip out. Okay, so let's get 18 done. So there are 3 sets of 6 on each of the needles. So 18 divided by 6 is 3. So there's 3 sets of 6, which I have intentionally done so that you can easily reduce the size of your hat within each of the needles itself. You'll see that coming up. Let's see where we are. So we got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. So I got 18 on this needle. I should double count. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and 18. Push it to the middle. Let it hold. You can move more of the yarn closer to the side of the needle, so releasing this out, and then you're going to grab a fresh needle again and start. When you jump from needle to needle now, the first one should be pulled tight so you don't get a gapping space in between. Okay, so once it's done, just use your finger, pull up, and make it tight. And after a few stitches, that one gets out of your way too. So you're going to put 18 onto this needle, and then 18 onto the next, and then 18 onto the last one. So continue around for the preparation round of transferring. So I'm doing my last knitting needle here. It's the 4th one. I did advance count, and there was only 18 loops left on the circular, so I'm not counting this one when I'm taking out. So just transferring it off of the circular completely. And so usually when you see knitters, you see them always with these DPNs, especially on mitts and stuff, because knitting needles do not bend. It's the only way to do a reduction is to increase your needles and then work your way in a circle from that point. So it's not like crochet where you're grabbing each stitch separately and making it the shape that you want. So once we get to the last one here, we are going to stop. And before you go too far, take out your circular needle, leave it out of the way, put it away for another day. And what we need to do is mark this one right here. So this is where the strand is coming out. So we're going to just use a spare piece of yarn and mark this so that we can see where this is in the future. So either use a tapestry needle. In my case, I'm a crocheter, so I'm just going to put my crochet hook through, and I'm just going to pull it through like this. And so whenever I see this, I'm going to know that I've gone all the way around, and it really does matter. So either use a stitch marker or just a spare piece of yarn. So now we're going to go through the checklist of rounds number 1 through 10. I'm going to take you through each of those steps as we close the top of this hat. So back here in the instructions, we're about to start the first round. We've placed our stitch marker, and now we're just going to check these off. So every other round, it's an even number, is just going to be a knit round, and the rest of them are going to be a reduction. So you just need that extra resting one of just the knit around to make it look the best it can. Let's begin. Number 1. From the top perspective, you have the 4 needles in play, and so as you're reducing these will get closer together to come to the top. We're going to grab that 5th needle, and now we're going to do a reduction. So we're going to just start, and we're using this one here, this new needle, and so we're going to be transferring these stitches to this needle, and then this needle will be taken out, and we'll use that needle to do the next one. So we're just going to grab the yarn and start, and we're going to knit the first 4. So when you go around the first time, just get it out of the way, and you're going to knit the first 4. Okay, so this can sit in front of the needle, just get the yarn in behind, and that was number 1. Number 2, see how this needle's in front? It's out of your way. 3 and 4. And so the next 2 will be knit 2 together. So instead of just knitting into the 1, you're going to grab both of these. Okay, and you are going to wrap around and secure both of them. So that was one multiple of 3 that are on here. Okay, there was 6 as I told you. So now we're going to, well, there's 6 stitches make up a multiple, and there was 3 multiples. So we're going to knit the next 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we knit the next 2 together. So put the needle in behind both of them, or into both of the stitches. It's a bit tight, but you'll get used to it. And then just wrap and pull through. And so now you'll get the rest of them that are on this needle. So you'll knit the first 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so the way that I had you lay this out is that the final 2 will be a reduction. So it'll be knit 2 together. So these are the last 2 on this knitting needle. And so this knitting needle that is in this hand here is going to pull out, and we're going to use that to knit with. So we move this down to the middle so it doesn't fall off. We rotate, we move these closer to the top and grab that extra one we just did, and then we start again. So we know where we're going all the way around because that stitch marker is in play. So we start again, so we knit 4. So 2, 3, and 4, and then we put the next 2 together. So I need you to do this all the way around, jump your needles, and you'll stop once you hit that stitch marker, and that's where I'll meet you for the next round. So just make sure that you are grabbing the right stitches and your multiples are right, and then you'll be good to go, and the reduction has just started. So please continue that same pattern all the way around on the rest of your needles, and I'll see you at the end of the round. So I've just completed all the way around, and I'm back to where the stitch marker is, so I know that I've gone all the way around. So going forward in this tutorial, every other round, such as 2, 4, 6, and 8, and 10, they're just knit rounds, so there's no reduction at all, and then the rest of them have a reduction. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to call out the stitches as we go. So I will stop because I'm filming it anyway and I'm doing it, so I might as well just tell you what it is when we go. And so we're going to start with round number 2 next. Round number 2, prepare by moving the needle closer to the tip, and you start with the first one. And round number 2, we're just going to knit all the way around. So don't worry about any reduction, and just continue to jump your needles and etc. by the time you get there. So I wouldn't worry about counting because you don't need to, because you did it on the last round, and just make sure that you transfer your needles. So every time you have a reduction, there's a reduction of 3 loops per one of these needles, so that actually it gets faster and faster the more rounds you do. So the trick is with these double points is that you got to make sure when you jump those needles that you keep the tension good. So if you get sloppy with your tension, you can end up with a hole that is visible. So this is giving the stitches a chance to decrease like we just did in the last one without doing anything extra. So make sure you move it to the center, reduce out, and switch your needles, push, and start your next one. And it's easier if this needle is just sitting towards you. It's out of the way that way. And continue to go around. This is number 2, and this will be the only time I'm demonstrating how the knitting just around with transferring to another needle. In the future, I'll just tell you to knit around. Okay, finished number 2. We're ready for round number 3. Round number 3, when you go to start, you are just going to knit the first 3 only. Okay, so we knit the first 3. 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to do decrease with knit 2 together. So put the next 2 together, and you're going to repeat that all the way around for round number 3. So knit 3, knit 2 together. I'll see you at the end of the round. I'm at the end of number 3. You can see the hole is getting smaller. Round number 4 is just knit all the way around. So please do round number 4, just straight knitting. Okay, you ready for number 5? That's round number 5. You are going to knit only 2 now, and then 2 together. So 1 and 2, and then knit 2 together. And you'll repeat that all the way around for round number 5. I'll see you at the end of the round. At the end of number 5 here, we've just now reduced again. It's even smaller in the top. So round number 6 is just straight knitting all the way around. My yarn has actually, I just changed color because that's coming out of the ball that way, which is fine. And we're going to just knit all the way around for round number 6. At the end of number 6, I'm now moving on to number 7. Number 7 is another reduction round, so you can tell where the stitch marker's in, and you're also going to be able to see where the reduction of the stitches are happening because it's really quite a pretty line. So we're going to begin, and round number 7 is knit 1 only. Okay, and then knit 2 together. So every time there's a reduction, you're reducing 3 stitches on each of the needles, so it's going faster. So knit 1 and then knit 2 together. Please do this around for round number 7. At the end of number 7 here, we're now going to move on to round number 8, just straight knitting all the way around for number 8. Okay, round number 8 is done, and now the final reduction round is number 9, and in 9 it's just going to be 2 together in all the way around. And finally, round number 10, we're just going to do a straight knitting all the way around, and whatever's left we're going to gather at the end of that. So just straighten it around. So now I am done. So now I want to create a longer tail, and we're going to use that tail to take these off. So all of these are live stitches, so we have to be very careful when we're going to do this process. So put it through a tapestry needle on the one side. Where it's coming out here, we just immediately jump to the next one as if we're starting a new round. Move the needle out of the way and just use that needle, and you can pull off. You can do more than one if you wanted to. Pull off at the same time, and then just pull that yarn strand through. And once that needle's done, you can just let it go. And then you just keep rotating around. Get the next 3. And finally the last one. The difference with crochet and knitting is that these stitches are always live, where crochet you create a knot each with every stitch. That's why it's easier to take things out. Okay, so this is done. So I'm just going to use that strand and pull through and pull the top shut, And what I prefer to do is that where this is coming out of, I just go completely the opposite. So just put your hand in behind, do not stab it. And just go completely the opposite to where that's coming out of. And then I go in like an X formation across. And then I go straight on down. So make sure it's not too sharp. You can remove that stitch marker out. Pull to the inside of the hat and just secure it to some of the strands. So you can just tie it into around a strand. So don't go to the point where it's so deep that it's going through to the back or to the good side of the work. And then once you have that tied, you can just simply just cut it. So now we have to secure the pom-pom, but I'm going to show you a way to do it, especially if you're in a craft show. Some people don't like pom-poms and they have an aversion to it. And so if somebody's complaining about it, you could just show them how it comes off. And if they're watching it too, they can deal with that too. So this is usually much longer. I did cut it short, so I'm just going to cut this right out. And so you can use that to tie it into there, but I prefer to actually use the yarn. So we can do that. So taking a strand of yarn, I just have it left over, and I'm just going to stab it into this ball. This ball is really quite tight, which is fine. If it was easy to come out, you'd be concerned. And you're just going to pull that through so that you have two strands here. Now you're just going to either take your tapestry needle or a crochet hook. In my case, I'll do a crochet hook because it's easier. And I'm just going to go on the top of that hat. And I'm going to go on one side of the center point and pop it through. And just grab one of the strands only and pull through. Okay. And now I'm going to put the needle or the hook back through the opposite side and grab the other strand and pull through. So usually in craft shows, people pull a stunt saying that they would have bought the hat if it wasn't for the pom-pom. So if you secure it on the way that I'm about to show you, that should be a non-issue. So it's on the inside, you got two strands, you're gonna pull it completely tight, just even them up a bit, and tie it only into a bow tie. So if somebody wants to wash this, they can just remove the bow tie and just feed it back through and just trim the tails short enough so it's not a problem. So the only strand you're gonna have to deal with is the beginning strand, and you will use a tapestry needle for that. You can clearly tell you what's the inside or the outside of the hat. So this is the outside. So flip it to the interior of the brim and just feed it through the brim going vertical. Try not to do too much on the other side of it so you don't see the needle. When you pull the first time, don't pull it to the point where it changes the shape. And then it's best to break apart the fibers. So don't go between the strands, actually go between the plies as well. And therefore it should never fall out on you. And so you'll go twice and then 3 times. When I first started learning crochet, I just wove it between the strands and it always fell out. But the best way to do it is to go between the plies and then trim that down. And therefore you'll have your first ever hat if this is new for you, and it's a really cool idea. And now I have a pistachio hat. And that's it for today. And you can see the washing instructions on the bottle label if you'd like to wash this as well. Really nice heathered look, and that's it for today.